Going back to our discussion question here, why did our inequalities switch in our problem? So I'm going to give you a sample. We had negative 6x is greater than 24, right? So this rule, and I want to make sure you capture this rule, but if we divide or multiply by a negative number, we switch the direction of the inequality. So what we mean is if the inequality is going that way, we switch it to make it to go the other direction. So why does that happen? Why is this a rule when we're solving inequalities? It's not a rule if we have an inequality like this, that if I'm minusing from each side, I don't switch that inequality. So why, when we multiply or divide by a negative, we have to switch? So let's look at it this way. If I have a negative number and I have a positive number, which one's going to be greater? The positive number is going to be greater, right? So what happens when I multiply by a negative or multiply by a positive? What I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by a negative number and multiply by a negative number. So what's a negative times a negative? A negative times a negative is a positive. What's a positive times a negative? It's a negative. So now you can see this is why the sign needs to change direction. What used to be negative is now positive, and what used to be positive is now negative. So now if I say which is bigger, you're going to indicate this side is bigger. So that happens no matter what, in the sense like if I started, I'm going to do this again, but if I start with a negative and a positive, you're going to tell me the positive is bigger. But if I divide by a negative number, that same philosophy works, right? A negative divided by a negative is a positive, and a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Again, you see, we need to switch the sign. So that is a rule. It's a unique rule that you're going to run into with these inequalities. Everything else will stay the same. Hopefully you see that. If you don't understand like why that's happening, let's, again, find me, breakout room, let's office hours, find me, and we'll go over that a little bit more in depth and do a few more examples. But you'll see that this always holds true.